This week on the podcast, we're joined by Indy Falco64, who's going to tell us all about the Callisto Protocol. He and Mendacii get into the weeds on Darktide, and stick around until the end of the show because we have some deals that you can take advantage of this week. All of that and more in this week's episode of the podcast. Roll the intro. Hello and welcome to Next to Nothing, a podcast for gamers on a budget. I am your host, Danny K. With me most of the time, I'm so used to my usual flow, but I am joined by the spooky and the ookly, the Mendacii. Mendacii, how are you doing?
Not too shabby, man. I got to run a horror one-shot over the weekend. I've been writing a whole bunch of sci-fi horror, and of course, just playing the most wonderful, grim, dark fantasy games that I can get my hands on.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, Mendacii. We're also joined by the ever so effervescent and handsome Indy Falco64, filling in for Mr. Green Elite this week because Mr. Green Elite is on vacation. Indy, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm halfway through dinner right now, but so if you see me like sneaking a little snack, don't worry about it. But I've been playing Pokemon, been playing Callisto Protocol, playing Warhammer. Back for Blood updates came out too. Been catching free games on Epic and like checking through my Humble Bundle. It's been busy.
Yeah, I think you've also been playing maybe a little bit of D&D.
Maybe a little bit. Just a teeny tiny bit of this really awesome campaign that I need more of. Inject it.
Is that campaign anywhere that people could find? I don't know.
It might be on the Next to Nothing network or something like that on YouTube.
Yeah, that's
I think you're right. Yeah. If you just like do like a search for like VRcana or like VRcana Handsome Monk does all the cool shit, you should probably be able to find it.
I think it's Handsome Monk and Robot Boy, his sidekick.
Yeah. Handsome Monk and Robot Boy sounds like a really bad like mid-2000s Cartoon Network TV show.
I love it.
That's my goal, man. Campaign goals.
Yeah, so we are joined by the Indy Falco64. Check him out when we do VRcana. You can check out all the previous episodes of VRcana up on YouTube right now. And they're coming to the podcast platform. I'm just a lazy ass, okay? Give me a break. I'm busy. So that'll make its way to the podcast platforms in the near future. But thanks for watching and listening to the show. Be sure to stick around until the end of the show, like I said, to hear about some awesome deals that we found for you this week. Of course, if you miss any part of the show, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and everywhere podcasts are found. And of course, you can join us live on Twitch most Tuesdays. This week we are doing the show. Yeah, this week we are doing the show on Wednesday because Indy needed to treat his partner out to a good night. And so we moved it to Wednesday, but we are usually live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time. And you can join us then. I don't think we have any real housekeeping to keep up with. So do we just want to get right into the Callisto Protocol?
Oh boy,
hell yeah.
Hell no.
Oh boy. What a fucking ride.
Do we need to like start rubbing our temples right now? Like pinch the bridge of our nose?
Yeah.
Probably rubbing your eye more than anything.
Nipples.
Yeah.
I mean, it might help, yeah.
So yeah, Indy, you're the one who's had the most hands-on. I think you're saying like before we started that you've actually beat the game.
Yeah, I actually beat it about an hour and a half ago. I decided to muscle through it and die a few more times on a very specific boss. It was great.
Yeah. So like let's just start out with what is the Callisto Protocol? Like how would you describe this game?
The Callisto Protocol. So, I mean, if you've played Dead Space or seen Dead Space, it is a very similar concept. There is man, I'm afraid to talk about the story, but essentially there is a prison on the moon. You end up crashing, and which is not really a spoiler. You're gonna crash somewhere. You're in space. Something bad's gonna happen. You're gonna fucking crash somewhere, and you're gonna have to deal with the aftermath. That's how most of them go. And then you run into all ugly nasties in there, and you're trying to survive and figure out what's going on down here, why there's blood all over the walls, why there's vents torn apart, stompy stomps in the distance, and people being weird, robots being weird, and very terrifying, actually. So the scariest things in this game are the robots by far to me. But yeah, it sets it in a very dark kind of despair of just pure, you're alone, good luck. Just like Dead Space, man. It gives you the creepy vibes, and I love it. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
I think that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, as the regular hook, I think you kind of got it. It's like stranded on a moon with like terrible monsters that are like undead and also like robots. Like you have like both. I think the hook there is just about right. And it's a third-person shooter, right?
It is third person, and it's actually it's a little bit more of a close-up, like over the shoulder third-person shooter, kind of similar to like Resident Evil 2, the remake. And it's nice. I actually like it a lot. I like being that close because any further away, and it kind of it's like the further the camera goes back, the less immersive it is, and that really sucks. But I think they got a good distance on it, and it feels good.
Yeah. So okay, so you kind of said something there that had me very curious, because I've seen a lot of people tweet about this game. In terms of like the gameplay itself, and very specifically the combat, how does that feel to you? Do you like the combat? Do you enjoy like getting into combat in this game, or
so the combat's actually pretty dope. Like the whole aesthetic of everything, it's gorgeous. It's all pretty well put together. There are some minuscule inconsistencies that I was like, what is this garbage? But nothing like super annoying or game breaking, at least for me. But as far as the combat goes, it's nice and gory. It's squishy, crunchy, just 100% of the way through, no matter what you're doing. Squishy, crunchy all the way. It's great. It kind of the way the camera's so close, and then you kind of have a little bit of camera shake with like melee hits and being hit and stuff like that. It really makes you feel the oomph, like as you're swinging and like you're really digging into these dudes, or they're digging into you and ripping your head off, whatever happens first, I guess. The melee range is a little bit short. He swings the sword just very awkwardly with two hands. So you got to be really close. There's no there's no lunge or anything, but if you're close enough, like in range, it'll kind of lock on for you, which is actually pretty smooth. And one trick you can do, very similar to Dead Space, is just pop him in the knee. That'll like make him stumble for a bit. You can get close enough to do that sweet melee, preserve all your ammo, and keep on going. One nice thing they did, and they very much, I can tell they encouraged it, by just shooting an opponent over and over, doesn't really do a ton of damage. But if you mix up the shooting and melee, which they have it very obviously set together for you to do, it actually kills things really, really quickly that way. It's a really nice combo. It feels good. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense how fast he's switching to a gun, but it is impressive, I guess. But essentially they give you like almost like a quick time event where you just like right click, pull out your gun, boop, and do a quick shot. And then you can do more melee because again, it will stumble them. You can kind of continue the cycle. That's rinse repeat on a lot of enemies. But once you start fighting more than one at a time, it can get a little weird and a little bullshitty. So, but otherwise it feels pretty good. It feels pretty smooth. I like it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I heard there was a decent dodge mechanic, and that you could actually like cancel your combo to like aim and then go right back into doing melee, so you could kind of do some like goofy fighting game bullshit to get your way through a lot of combats.
You can absolutely take advantage of the animation because the draw speed is just like, it's just like there, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a little too arcadey, I feel, for the game, but I mean it works. It's not terrible. It's not overwhelming, and the dodge is actually really simple in the game as long as you are not aiming down sight with your range weapon out. If you're holding left or right, your straight buttons A and D for PC players, you'll just automatically dodge. Just don't dodge the same direction too many times because they'll start to predict, and then they'll jab you or stab you, grab you, whatever. There's also a blocking mechanic, which is freaking great because you can block and then sweep their leg, and then beat the crap out of them. It's pretty awesome. There is this one weird part of the whole melee mechanics that drove me nuts most of the way through. And that's when typically after you sweep the leg, you'd think them falling or it'd be a guaranteed fall, but sometimes it's not. And if they're mid animation, there seems to be like a weird inconsistency whether it'll affect the mid animation or it won't. So it's like they have super armor sometimes on light attacks, and then sometimes they don't when you're colliding at like the same time. So it's like a weird dice roll on what's going to happen and whether you get staggered or you just go through with the whole attack and still take damage. Like it's a little wonky in that aspect, but like if you pace it out, which is what I think they meant to do, so you learn enemies and they're like their combos essentially, and then when to attack, it works fine. It's great, but yeah, that one's a little weird. That's the only thing that bothered me for the combat.
With those combos and like the I guess like loop that you do, did you ever feel like it got, I don't know, a little too like samey, a little too like bread and butter?
Yeah, no, it was totally bread and butter. They had like a few different I guess death animations for each type of creature. Like some of them you just bash them in the head until their head just splits in two, which you're bashing it with not a sharp weapon. It's a stun baton upgraded essentially. So it's a very messy, crunchy split. And then there's other times where you'll like cut their arm off and hit him in the side, just basically beat the crap out of them. It's very cinematic in the way they do it too. So they fuse it together nicely. It's really pretty, but it is kind of bread and butter until you get to a couple different other types of enemies. Then it is very, you don't want to be there anymore kind of stuff.
Right.
Now, is it kind of like that whole, like, it's bread and butter feeling? Is that more a design of the fact that it's a horror game and not really meant to be a combat focused game? It's more about like the story and scares, do you think? Or like,
I think
like,
I think it's probably more about the stories and scares. Yeah. Like they put mechanics in there and then there's dodging and combos and stuff. And I don't think they wanted to put like enough mechanics to be like crazy, like Back for Blood or like a roguelike game or anything.
Yeah.
And they wanted you to really to like feel that up close and personal with each enemy, and then the cinematic effects and kills and stuff like that. Which, by the way, there's a lot of death animations for the main character. It's pretty great. I think my favorite one is when the big boy with the two heads, which is one of the bosses that you encounter several times through the game, will step on each of your arms, crushing them one at a time while you're just laying there, just screaming like oh, I'm gonna die. And then he'll step on your head as the last one, which I also ran into that animation a lot. There was one in particular. It was, I don't know, dude. You mess up once on those dudes, and that's it. Like, just you're dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very punishing on certain places.
Yeah. So I have a question because you were playing on PC, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How was performance on your machine? Because that was another
So I'm
thing.
running. Oh no, go ahead.
I said that was something I saw a lot of people talk about with this game on PC, was that the performance was kind of bad, that it would chug a lot of frame rates.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
So yeah, what was your experience?
Oh man, that's gonna be hard to describe. Now, this being said, it's a beautiful environment. Almost everything is very well constructed, and it just feels immersive in the way that they designed all the bases, the whole moon, the ship, everything is fucking gorgeous. But I have a 1080 Ti, and at first, it definitely ran like trash. I was probably getting maybe 40-ish, 45 frames at the most, and there were several scenes where it was either loading a cutscene or it was just loading something in the distance, and it was jerking around real hard. It was real bad. Once I got all the assets loaded, it was better, but it was really, really bad. So I went on Steam, looked up a bunch of stuff. There's a few things you can do in general between turning motion blur off. And I think there was like a config file you could add something so that it didn't like cache the shaders like live as you were moving. It would just cache them in advance or something like that. And I think that's what made the biggest difference. And after I did that, I pretty much had 60 frames most of the time. Sometimes it would dip to like 40 or 30 if there was like seriously a lot of stuff off in the distance. But for the most part, after that, it was smooth as butter for me on a 1080 Ti. For everyone else, from what I saw on the 20 series and 30 series, it was real bad no matter what they did. And I don't know if it was like a ray tracing issue. I don't know if it was just more caching shaders issues. I don't know where the issue lied, but it was like maybe 30 frames tops for them, and most of the time like average of like 15 at best.
Wow.
It was real bad from what I was reading and seeing, and I was like, oh no, this poor game. It was really awful. But on the 10 series, it was actually pretty freaking smooth. After those 3 fixes. Yeah.
It kind of sounds like it might have been like an optimization issue or something like that. Like you said,
For
like
sure.
the ray tracing, which you know, like I feel like a lot of the games have been coming out lately during this generation have been having those kinds of issues as they kind of like try to play with those and like make everything look so crazy, and like the particle effects. And I know that that's definitely a problem here. Like we just saw them anytime that there was like strobe light effect from lights or the fire bouncing off of stuff. The video that we have on screen, like you're watching the latency drop. Like it's not good.
Yeah. Now that was on PC. From what I heard about PS5, is it actually handled it pretty well. I didn't really see a whole lot of complaints about that. So maybe they were kind of on board with like how my 10 series handled it.
Yeah.
Which, if that's the case, that's not bad at all. But yeah, that's performance wise. There was also one thing that really bothered me, and I can't tell if it's the game and just how they designed it, and maybe it's like a weathering effect. I don't know. It's driving me nuts. But a lot of the texturing on the walls and stuff tend to be. It came off as kind of blurry to me, like for the weathering effects with like paint and stuff like that, and it just looked weird. And like I would look at a chest I opened, and I'm like, why is this chest so soft and almost blurry like? But then I would look like at some mechanics and assets, like a 3D table and some weird surgical tools and like robot arms and shit, and it looks like sharp as F. And I tried my best.
You can swear, you know that, right?
All right. Well, you done diddly goofed.
I'm a co-host here. Of course, you can swear.
Awesome. But yeah, it's I don't know. It wasn't everywhere. It was just very it kind of reminds me of like when I played Resident Evil 2 for the first time when the remake came out, and I had VSync and FreeSync on like a dumb by accident, and it like muddled a lot of the textures. And then after I turned one of the two off, it looked sharp as fuck. It looked gorgeous. So it kind of reminded me of that, and I don't know, it was weird. But everything else is pretty good. Pretty good in the 10 series. I got lucky.
So I'm gonna ask you a performance question, but I'm gonna ask you about the vocal performances of the cast, because it has at least one heavy hitter. I got to double check the credits here, but I mean it has Karen Fukuhara, who is probably one of the biggest up and coming actors in Hollywood. Very well known for her performance as Kimiko, or the female of the species in The Boys TV series. I think she's had a couple other roles recently too. So like how was like the vocal performance? How was like the voice acting and stuff in this game?
The voice acting was fantastic. I loved it. I love the characters. I think they're dope. They all had their place. Some of them are assholes, and some of them are just like, what am I doing here? But it was good. There was only, I think, one line where like the subtitle didn't match up. But as far as the voice quality, it was great. I had zero complaints about it.
Awesome. I have like one more question, but it's more of a good like ending question. So I'm gonna like Mendacii, do you have anything that you wanted to mention or bring up or ask?
Yeah, I mean, I'm noticing a little bit myself. Indy, I don't know how much you remember from like the Dead Space games and everything like that, but I've noticed a lot of assets, as well as like a couple of the ways that the monsters are actually like showing up, combat wise, and just kind of some of the spooks and scares. It obviously it's by striking distance, which is primarily the people that worked over at Visceral Games that worked on Dead Space. They're headed by Glenn Schofield, who is, I believe the correct title would be creative director and executive producer of Dead Space 1 and 2. It looks like they're really rehashing a lot of Dead Space 1 and 2 here. I can't quite tell if it's really like a good thing. I just kind of feel like it's kind of like we have Dead Space at home kind of feel. now, kind of trying to retread here so I don't bury the lead. From your memories of playing the Dead Space games, do you feel like this rehashes a lot of what they already succeeded at doing in Dead Space? And if so, do you feel like they, caught lightning in a bottle twice?
So, I mean, this is a very, very similar formula. It's hard to say it doesn't rehash it, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like they took it, but they just made a few important but subtle differences throughout the game. Like, instead of having to pop off all the creature's limbs to kill it, they actually want you to go through like a weird melee ranged hybrid of combat to like kind of get your heart pumping, which is cool. And it's more like in there, and there's like close-ups and stuff like that. So like, I feel like that's better, because staying far away is not the best option all the time. So that's kind of cool. But then with the environment and stuff, and how it kind of and of course it's railroady. I mean, it's got a story. You only get but so many areas where you can just branch off and go explore this and that, and maybe find like a voice mod or something like that. A voice log, sorry. I mean, yeah, it's kind of on that edge, or maybe it's just kind of stepping its toe in the water of that rehash for sure. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's good for the future of the game, because I believe it seems like there's room after playing for a sequel, which I would definitely play after this. Hopefully it'll be off to a much better start and optimized a lot better. Hopefully they've learned, or maybe they'll never make anything. Who knows?
But time will tell.
But yeah, I mean, it definitely has Dead Space mechanics in it for sure, especially the third person over the shoulder stuff, which, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I love it.
The stomp, like some of the swings that your main character is doing, the stomp obviously is a big one. Enemies running away from you to sneak away into a vent to sneak up on you later. I even saw like one of the item wall mounted chests like that. It opens up differently, but it's basically the same wall mounted chest from all 3 Dead Space games. So like, that's kind of one of those things where it's like, I think this is a little too cheeky to be a reference. I feel like this is you guys showing like, listen, I know how to do one thing really well.
I think so too. Yeah. Which, again, I'm not mad about, but at the same time, hopefully they'll be a little more advanced and do some new stuff if they make another sequel or DLC or whatever.
Right on.
So yeah, I guess my final question is, like, overall, I'm gonna actually ask you here. Overall, is this game worth purchasing? And I have kind of some more specs and information there after you answer that. And then, who is this game ultimately for? Like, is this people who crave, like, is this for people who crave a new Dead Space game, or is this for a totally different crowd?
Oh, that is a great question. I feel like it's for any space horror nerd that wants space horror. I think that's just all it is. And I mean, if you want Dead Space, it kind of really captures the spirit very well, because it's obviously part of the team has remade a few things in a newer fashion on it. Whether it's worth it to buy it right now or not, I'd have to say probably wait until it goes on sale, and also wait because of the performance issues. That needs to be like 100% solved, because that is just, it sucks, dude. And that's just really bad. But I mean, I love it, like I said, and I love space horror. Anything on a derelict ship in space, I'm in, dude. Throw me in the car. So yeah, I'm a sucker for this stuff. I kept my ears perked and my eyes wide open for a lot of problems with it, and I've seen some stuff, but it's not horrible. But I feel bad for the 2080 and 3080 or 20 and 30 series users. I feel real bad for them.
Yeah. So if you are interested in the Callisto Protocol, you can get it on PlayStation 5 and 4, Xbox One X and S, Windows 10 and 11. The minimum system requirements is a 64-bit operating system, Windows 10 or 11, Intel Core i5-8400 or an AMD Ryzen 5 2600, NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 or an AMD Radeon RX 580, and 75 gigs of available hard drive space. Anything else on the Callisto Protocol?
I don't think so. No, I
I think that. Oh yeah, what were you gonna say, Andy?
I was gonna say, I guess if I had to actually give it a rating, I'd probably give it like, if we ignore the performance issues and it was actually smooth, I'd probably give it like a 7.5 out of 10. But obviously with the performance issues, it's like a 2 because that affected so many people so horribly. So
yeah,
that's it.
I just have 2 notes. We have Dead Space at home, and man, sure can't wait for the Dead Space remake.
True that, dude. Looking forward to it.
Can't wait to have more Dead Space at home.
Oh yeah.
Yum, Dead Space.
Yum,
looking
yum,
good so
yum.
far, though.
Dead Space.
Looking good.
So, do you guys want to get into the next game, which is Darktide?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mendacii, take it away. This is all you, baby boo.
It really is.
For sure. Yeah, I actually got to play with Indy quite a bit, and mostly I've played with my homie from Podcast for Two People, Mr. Brent, Cyberbrent to all you internet folks. So Warhammer 40K, Darktide, was released on November 30th, and I've been playing since November 17th because I was part of the pre-order beta. During that phase, hiccups, gaffes, goofs stopped people from enjoying the entire game without server disconnects or hard crashes to the desktop. Sadly, a lot of those persist in the initial release updates. There's plenty of good, but I'm going to tell you a lot of bad things too. First, though, I'd like to give everyone a brief overview of what Darktide is. If you missed the bus, Warhammer 40K is a grim and oppressive hyper-futuristic setting. You know, it's the 41st century, it's 40K. With massive armor, chainsaw swords, and basically an eternal war, all for the glory of the God Emperor of mankind. There's tons of lore, so go to YouTube. If this review piques your interest, just go to town and lose an entire weekend to Warhammer 40K lore vids. Darktide takes place in that grimdark, far-flung future on a planet ravaged by chemical warfare, chaos soldiers, demons, so on and so forth. The city of Tertium on the planet Atoma Prime is your primary setting. The player characters are prisoners on a giant prison ship called the Mourningstar. You pick one of 4 classes and create your character from their backstory, like literally your origins, like your home world and stuff. And then you go all the way through all that, do your appearance, like your physical appearance, and then you have at it in a horde shooter with a lot of hacking and slashing and dodging. If you played Vermintide 1 or 2, it's that, but with more enemies, more specials, and more shooting. If you played Left 4 Dead or Back 4 Blood, it's that, but better and with more of everything. Yeah. So now onto the game proper. Hang tight, because it's going to get a little messy. Like a good stew, I'll be telling you the ingredients of the game, both good and bad, as we go. Starting with some good, the gameplay loop is satisfying and constantly changing due to environmental changes, secondary objectives, and varying difficulties available. However, several levels have a very samey aesthetic, and without a name and a picture of said map to go with the mission, you might forget which map is which. They're all really, really defined in the events that you have to do in these maps. Like the consignment yard has you do a massive, super fun last stand on top of a really long train car.
God.
Getting sniped at. Which will almost one-shot you, while tons and tons of like possessed are just climbing all over the train trying to destroy you. And yeah, it's great. And then you've got some where you're trying to ventilate a forge so that you can speak to the machine spirits and start making new armor and weapons so you can fight back against the chaos. There's a lot of really cool shit that you do in this game. So you pick which mission you want to do, what difficulty you want to do it on, or if you want to do a secondary objective. Assignments, however, are on a timed rotation. So if I wanted to play that consignment yard, but I want to play it on difficulty 3, that might not be available. It might only be available as difficulty 1 or difficulty 5. And you pretty much are just stuck with what missions are there until that timer kind of rotates into the next mission. They're not all the missions are on separate timers, so there's always something typically about to go off and something new about to come in. But with the secondary objectives, you also don't get to choose that. So if you need to pick up secondary objectives for more money or a weekly task, which I'll talk about later, you don't really get your pick of the litter. It's whatever's available to you. So this mechanic is a far cry from the structured and sequential story missions of Fat Shark's previous title, Vermintide 2. There are a few goofy things with balancing with the difficulty, secondary objectives, environmental hazards. It would take way too long to get into it. So I'll summarize with this. Too much salt, needs some balance. On to the next ingredient. I mentioned character building earlier. The character customization is pretty neat. While there are only 4 classes to choose from, your ability to select a homeworld, why you were arrested, your values, or perhaps your calling to the stars, and which voice actor, you get to choose from 3 of those, is really fun. You know, you mush all of that in with your physical appearance, and you feel like you kind of have a fairly unique character. These choices change your character's voice lines in the game and how they respond to other players' voice lines. The banter, the line reads, and overall voice performance is sincerely top tier, and they were able to get a lot of the voice actors from the previous games in to do voice work. So if you're a big fan of, like, say, Sienna Fuegonasis from Vermintide and Vermintide 2, you can have her voice one of your rejects if you'd like. Your entire physical appearance, by the way, can be changed in-game at the prison shop's flesh crafter at any time. So if you're like, oh, I don't like this hairstyle, or I want a different face tattoo, that's easily done. The only negative I have here is that I want more specific character builds. Each class can do almost everything well. So I'd like to get into that. We have the Ogryn, Psyker, Veteran, and Zealot for classes. The Ogryn can be an exceptional tank with a mace and shield, or go full DPS with a giant gun, and when they get bored, they can just bull rush the horde and send all the enemies flying in every direction. The Psyker can go AoE with force staves or stick with several guns and blades. They can also focus on single targets with their brain bursting power that replaces their ability to throw grenades. They also have like a get the hell away from me kind of special as well that will ventilate your peril, as they call it, from, you know, using your brain bursting attack all the time, because, you know, you're probably going to want to do that, and if you use it too much, you explode and you might kill your friends. The Veteran can excel at spray and pray, keeping your enemies running from cover to cover, or excel at single target damage, a la damage and accuracy boosting for a few potent shots, which is excellent for taking out specials and bosses alike. The Zealot can be a damage sponge and melee fanatic with a giant chainsaw battle axe or a 2-handed chainsaw sword, and a myriad of other weapons. They get buffed as they take damage and can quickly regain their toughness meter, which is a barrier for your overall HP. They can also bull rush a crowd like the Ogryn, or focus crit damage on single targets. So while you can't entirely cover all bases with each character, there's still much overlap. With some party makeups, it kind of feels like everyone is playing the same class. It'd be nice to see some diversity here. There are skill trees, but some of the skills seem to have little to no use, and others only seem to be useful once you've reached a max level of 30 and can find the synergy between them. The significant issues that have been arising with Darktide stem from 2 things: optimization and marketing practices. Plenty of players are still disconnecting. However, some players have yet to encounter this issue, and some just, you know, here and there. It's a pretty big, I guess, like, paradigm or prism of bullshittery, you might be able to enjoy it. You might get kicked out of every game. Who knows? Grab some candy out of the bag. So there's significant gaps of people also suffering from latency issues. Hi, yes, it's me. I'm your friendly neighborhood. I'm dying in the middle of this horde and I can't see anything because I'm playing at 1 or 2 FPS. Please help. And general bugs. I have been experiencing error 4008, which disconnects me from my game session, puts me through a 2-minute loading screen, and then asks if I'd like to join my previous session. And when I sit and contemplate that, and then I hit yes, I get to wait an additional 2 to 3 minutes and I'm back in, albeit with less ammo and health for some reason. And sometimes some of the secondary items like a med kit, an ammo crate, or perhaps a grimoire or tome, which you collect for secondary objectives, might be missing from my inventory, with pretty much no explanation as to why that happens. Another frustrating bug was that I didn't see what I received for EXP Ordo, the in-game currency for weapons and things, materials, and so on after I completed a mission. On one occasion, I received no EXP, but received everything else. The game can crash at unexpected times, like when you're swapping between windows, or alt-tabbing, or looking at a different equipment screen, cycling through a merchant's goods, or when a player pops off with a specific weapon that the game doesn't like rendering. I haven't had it happen lately, but there were a couple different Psyker force stabs that I just couldn't use because as soon as I pulled the trigger, my game would just eat itself. Now for the marketing practices. They are borderline scummy, my friends. The aesthetics that you can get are very expensive. They're only available for short periods and offer no time frame in which they'll return. So it influences a person's anxiety about not getting the thing. That's FOMO. Skins are anywhere between $5 and $20 American, depending on what you're looking at. You have to buy Aquilas, which is a premium currency, and it's in bundles. So you have a $5 bundle, a $10 bundle, and I think a 20, and there might be a 15. But yeah, and then of course, it goes all the way up to 100 if you want to be a whale. They would love that. The more expensive skins require you to spend around $20 and will leave you with just enough Aquilas to not be able to buy anything else. Costumes are also class specific. So if you want the premium Psyker and Ogren skins that are currently available, you're going to have to get ready to shell out some real bucks for some space bucks. There are a couple other annoying bits to Darktide, from the nearly impossible penances, which are kind of like personal or character achievements that players have to do in order to get some class-specific aesthetics that seem like they had a different game in mind when they actually came up with the challenges. Then there's the weekly quest board. This quest board has tasks that range from easy, that'll take up to, say, like 8 or so games to complete, to absolute insane, dumb bullshit that you will spend ordo to re-roll and get a new task and just hope that it's not as insane as the thing that you tried to not even fathom doing.
There's one thing I don't like about it.
Yes. And the other thing is too, is that sometimes the game doesn't track your progress correctly on these tasks. So if it says kill 1,000 dredge or whatever the fuck, dregs, sorry, and you kill, say, 350 your first mission, then you go back and you see that it has 0, it's not going to come back later. It's going to sit at 0. So sometimes it counts and sometimes it just doesn't. So these things may take longer than you think they would. Several mechanics are also yet to be released, like crafting weapons, changing some of your weapons' properties and traits, like their previous titles, that you can just do from your menu without your game crashing very quickly and nice and clean. However, players can see plans to do so on one of the merchant's screens. Should they go and talk to them, wait about 30 seconds, have the window pop up, and their game doesn't crash, you can see that that option is there, and it says coming soon. So get hyped to make numbers go even bigger. So overall, the game is enjoyable, especially when you have an entire party of friends who can strategically communicate and tackle the levels. It has many stability issues and needs to rethink its marketing practices and some of its secondary mechanics. Still, if Vermintide 2 is an indicator, we will see good future outcomes. I'd recommend this game only if you're patient and understanding, or a massive fan of the 40K aesthetic and universe. It is an intense and beautiful game when it's working as intended. There are plans to bring Darktide to consoles, but only current gen systems. So if you only have an Xbox One or a PS4, you are going to need to either upgrade or continue dreaming about what it's like to chainsaw your way through an entire horde of chaos-possessed denizens of Tertium. That being said, right now, it's only available on Steam. The standard edition retails for $39.99, and an Imperial edition for about $25 more. Comes with some really great bonus costumes and some character frames and some Aquilas for some premium costumes so you can save yourself from FOMO once. Yay. All right. Now, I guess minimum specs. You're going to need a 64-bit operating system. So Windows 10 64-bit, Windows 11 64-bit, whatever. I believe that there is an iOS. I didn't, for some reason, copy it down. I don't know. Go look. Sorry. For your processor,
iOS
you're going to need
or Mac OS?
Mac OS, yeah, processor, you're going to need an Intel i5 6600 or an AMD Ryzen 2400G. For memory, you're going to need 8 gigs. Honestly, if you're running at only 8 gigs, you're going to have a terrible time with this. Consider getting more. And for graphics cards, you're going to need a NVIDIA GeForce GTX 970 or AMD Radeon RX 570. And then DirectX 12. Obviously, you're going to need internet because the game is constantly updating, via the internet, and it's a multiplayer game, so no offline play. There's no single player story right now. Don't know if there will be in the future. So you need the internet. You need 50 gigs for this game for storage. And lastly, if you do grab it, I commend you, and let me know. I would love to play some games with you. I'm sure Indy would, and I'm sure our friend Brent would. Like I said, it is beautiful, but it is absolutely, without a doubt, a fucking mess right now. But I'm having a great time.
Beautiful mess. Any other thoughts, things that we want to express on Darktide? Indy, anything that you want to get out there?
Man, if you're a fan of that style, like Back 4 Blood, Left 4 Dead, and Vermintide 2, that classic FPS slashing through hordes kind of stuff with special units and whatever, and like really beautiful maps, like, yeah, it's fun to play. I will say I really hate oh my god, it's one of the reasons I stopped playing a lot of other games, that weekly mission stuff, because I don't like the pressure that it puts on you. And then with the ridiculous missions, I don't like that either, because then it's like, oh god, I have to play every day this week, or I'm not going to get this done. And it sucks because it's like a different currency, and it's like special stuff you can get. Nothing too crazy, but it's like special or whatever.
The rarest tier of guns and weapons, you're going to need that currency to get to, or you're going to have to spend a lot of raw materials to upgrade the weapons and stuff that you currently have. And like some of those missions, man, they're like, go get 20 tomes. And you're like, well, I can only carry 3 every mission. So, and that's if 2 other party members get each one, and then they don't die.
Yeah, and with playing with randos online, that's pretty very hit and miss. So,
and even worse is the grimoires, because there's only 2 every mission, and I believe the weekly is typically get 6 of them. And when you get 2 grimoires, it you get corruption and it burns away your health meter. So like you can't heal past that. It's like a constant wound, and like your health will constantly be ticking down. So if you're not playing with people that are very competent at the game and can like manage their health, manage their stamina by dodging and blocking and so on and so forth, you're going to die constantly. It's going to be a pain in the ass, and that is one of those ones that you should absolutely re-roll.
I do it every time too. Yeah, I don't like the Grim Wars. The challenge is cool, but like the consistency for the purpose of that store, no.
Yeah, and those items were completely different than they did in Vermintide, and I'm not really sure why they felt the need to do that, but you know, here we are. We'll see what changes going forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, or do we want to go into some weekly deals you can snag?
I think I'm good. I said plenty of pieces.
Oh yeah, I think you covered pretty much all of it.
Okay, so I'm going to start out with a deal that you guys can pick up right now. It's on Humble Bundle, which know that we are Humble Bundle affiliates, and I do have an affiliate link that I will be posting in the description of this episode because I think this is actually a really good one. If you are a creative person, it is the Content Creator Pack, which gives you Sony Vegas Pro, Forge Audio, and a few other programs for like $25. So if you want to start a YouTube channel, a podcast, or just have general fun trying to create stuff, it's a really good way to start out. You don't have to pay a monthly fee to Adobe. Pretty good. $25. This would be good if you're looking to get away from spending $30 a month on Adobe programs at a minimum. So yeah, that's my suggestion. Humble Bundle. Check out the link in the description of this video. I'm going to post the link in the live chat right now as we speak. Mendacii, what do you got?
One of my favorite, all-time favorite games, Disco Elysium, and its final cut that added voice acting and everything like that, is 75% off on Steam right now. It's literally only $10, and it's only on sale for the next 5 days. So it goes off sale after the 12th. So you should definitely grab that if you're looking for a cool little like adventure character RPG mystery style game. You need to grab it. It's probably like a solid 20-30 hours of gameplay. You haven't played a game like it before, so you should definitely grab that. And I'm throwing that link in the chat as well, and that will also be in the episode description.
Excellent. Indy, anything that you saw that you want to tell people about for a good deal, a good steal?
Well, I know a lot of people hate Epic for reasons I question every day and every time I hear it, but on the Epic Store, there's a game that comes out tomorrow, this Wildcat Gun Machine, and it looks pretty dope. Gives me very strong Hades vibes. I don't know if you guys have never played Hades. You should play that. It's on Steam. It's absolutely amazing. Top-down roguelike, dungeon crawling, hack and slash. It's so good. And the stories. Oh my God, Hades is so good. Anyways, free game tomorrow. Wildcat Gun Machine on Epic. So I recommend downloading that and then keeping an eye out on their store because just starting December 15th, I think they're going to give away a free game. I think it's just one free game every single day until I think it's January 10th. So that's a lot of free stuff, man. It's worth downloading because it's free.
Free
so
shit.
keep an eye on it. Free stuff.
Free stuff. All right, I think that's going to do the show then this week. I think it's going to do it.
Killer.
Word.
So let's go around the table here. Indy Falco, for those who haven't met you yet, who are you, what do you do, and where can people find you?
I am a content creator on Twitch. I've got to do jack shit all with my YouTube, but you can find me on Twitch playing games, hanging out with people, doing weird stuff, emulating games, all sorts of fun stuff at IndyFalco64, twitch.tv/IndyFalco64. Same for my YouTube. I think that is also /IndyFalco64. Same on Twitter, is IndyFalco64. If you see IndyFalco64 anywhere, it's probably me. So, yeah. I'll be playing a lot of games this week, so tune in. It'll be more Darktide. There might be more Callisto, maybe in the harder setting. I'm not sure yet. Maybe it deserves a second chance. Maybe it doesn't. We're going to have some more Back for Blood because the DLC just dropped. And anything else people request, honestly. Yeah, if it looks good.
Excellent.
And Wildcat Gun Machine.
Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium.
Oh, that's gonna be! I can't wait for the voice acting for that. Like, I
It's
just hope
so
I don't die from being so uncomfortable sitting on a chair again, because that was the weirdest death I've ever had in a game. I sat in front of the mob boss, and the dialogue was like, "This chair is really uncomfortable," and that's it. This is ridiculous. I love that game
so much.
Oh man, I
Mendacii,
can't wait.
what's coming up with you?
Well, I think that in what is it, like a week and some odd days, I'll be back on V Arcana as your delicious himbo monk. And you know what? Like, we're finally level 3. So you get to
Big
find
changes.
out what path I took. And I have but one hint. Oh, what? Yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm so fucking hyped. Otherwise, yeah, you can find me on Twitter at only Mendacii. Maybe I'll stream again in the future. I don't know. Anyway, that's twitch.tv/Mendacii. Or when Hive comes back, apparently this week, you'll just find me at Mendacii. Otherwise, I think we might actually put out some podcasts for 2 people content here. Might do a movie or 2. We'll see. So definitely be checking the podcast streams for that.
Heck yeah. Coming up for me, I am working behind the scenes. So probably not any streaming. My fiance is back in town for a little bit, so I won't be doing anything really while she's here, because my time with her is precious. So yeah, I'm recording a bonus episode with Zombie Potion for VR Arcana tomorrow, and then getting stuff prepped for our next session. So also we have bonus episodes that I'm working on with Indy and Mr. Green Elite still, and then we have more plans for like bonus episodes as well, but like some smaller group ones. So check that out. You can also find me on Twitter at Danie K, DANIECAE. I shitpost a lot and share my opinions on things that aren't related to gaming because I'm just a fucking monster. Anyways, that I think is going to wrap up the show this week. So thanks for watching and listening to the show. Your time and attention is always appreciated, but if you've made it this far, be sure to try up us a subscribe, like and subscribe on YouTube. That really helps us out quite a bit, and it's always appreciated. Don't forget to let us know your thoughts on anything that we talked about today, especially if you've played Callisto and Darktide. Let us know what you think about those games in the comments sections. We try to respond to all of the comments that we get. And then don't forget to tweet at us if you want to let us know what, that like we're wrong. If you think Indy Falco is just like entirely wrong in Callisto, tweet at us and then we'll tell him.
I want to hear it. I want to fight you. We're gonna fight.
Yeah. So otherwise, until next week, stay safe, stay healthy, keep fighting the good fights, and we'll see you again next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.